عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Actually, I didn't think it was going to be like this, but khair, inshallah. It is not a secret that we live here in America and we see the hypocrisy and we see the attack and the polarization and the lies and the propaganda that the American government is spreading and is adopting. It is not a surprise that we see all the politicians and the institutions, even research centers and universities, and everyone, whether they have an interest or not, is actually adopting a propaganda that will alienate Muslims, that takes the one-sided story, supporting 100% unequivocally the Zionist state and its narrative of what's going on in Palestine. It is not also a secret that we see the same thing coming from anybody and everybody who claim that they are, civilized world or anything that is called the Western nations, whether it is Australia, UK, France, Germany, or anything. Matter of fact, if you look at all of that and this support, you may say that this is the Crusaders coming back together. Actually, they never vanished. They always worked and planned and orchestrated everything that we suffer from today. And because, of course, part of it is on us, but they never vanished. But now they surface again clearly, publicly, with their ugly face, to adopt propaganda and, if you want, a way to deal with the Muslims for a few things that we'll discuss today. I don't need to address this hypocrisy and the lies in the Western media and also in the Western politicians and Western governments, but we need to understand why is this going on. It is actually for two reasons. That this propaganda and this system and this policy and all that, what is going on right now, that is 100% one-sided, is for two reasons, and we must understand that. Reason number one, they want to alienate you and me and all the Muslims who live in the heart of their countries, who live and stay and are already behind enemy lines. We are in the belly of the beast. So they understand that, and they understand that our loyalty is to our deen and to our ummah. And I don't care if you're born and raised here in America or anywhere in the West, and if you have been secularized, you're still a Muslim. There is aqidah, there is a live deen in your heart that one day will call you and will let you know that you are still part of this Muslim Ummah. So that's reason number one. They want to alienate the Muslims and strike fear in our hearts to make sure that if you think of anything or if you ally yourself with the Muslims, we have this or these dogs, unleashed against you. That's reason number one. Reason number two, for reasons that we may not see clearly and understand very well, that they do understand and they do see very well, they need to prepare their public opinion and build a public opinion against Islam and Muslims for reasons that they have well understood and will embrace, that Islam will come back again, whether it is a prophecy that needs to be fulfilled or true and real serious actions on the ground and real resurgence that is happening across the Muslim Ummah, the global Ummah. They see and gauge the impact that the Muslims and the true Dawah carriers have everywhere they go from the east to the west. So for these two reasons, this propaganda and this way of dealing with the situation has been going on. So for reason number one is to alienate us and strike fear in our hearts. Reason number two is to prepare and build their public opinion against Islam and Muslims, because they know the clash of civilization and the clash between the kufr and Islam is coming no matter what. This is not a secret. I'm not claiming anything. You can go and research. So for us to understand what is going on today, we really have to understand the root cause problem, the root cause of this problem, and also we have to understand the root cause solution for this problem. So we have to understand three things to understand the root cause of this problem. Number one, the one who created the Zionist state, the state of so-called Israel. Also the one who sustains this entity, and the one who protects it. Because you may create something, you may make it exist, but if you don't sustain it, make it, stay alive, and you don't protect it, it's going to be vanished again. So the one who created the state or the entity of the Zionist is basically Britain, as we know, and the European countries along that time. We know in 1897, 1907, before the First World War and after the First World War, there were many conferences that Europe at that time had to address the situation. The Khilafah state, the Uthmani Khilafah was falling. The Muslims are going to be disintegrated, but we want to make sure that they never rise again. There is never going to be a political entity that will bring Muslims together. How can we guarantee that? So 1897, Theodor Herzl, goes to, in the very well-known international conference, he goes and he presents his services to the European countries, mainly UK. And then 1907, the more famous international conference where the European countries came to actually execute this plan, and they picked the Jewish so-called people or nation because they have a perfect fit for that. So the idea is to install and create a foreign entity in the heart of the Muslim lands that will divide and make sure it stays divided and protects the interest of the West in the region, in the heart of the Muslim lands. So it's very easy to sell to the Jewish people. Why? Because number one, they claim that they were in this land 4,000 years ago, or whatever in days of history. Number two, they have prophecies that they are the chosen people and this is the promised land and all of that. So instead of coming to another nation that will be very difficult to sell the idea to, it will be very easy to sell the idea to the Jewish people. That's why they picked the Jews and they said, this is your promised land, this is the land where you were, this is the land that God promised you that, and we will protect you, we will sustain you, and we'll make sure you have everything that it takes for you to survive and be, alive. So these are the ones who created the Zionist entity. But that was UK back then. It is very well understood that the one who's going to control the world arena and be in the political world arena is going to sustain the state. So it was before UK and France, now it's America and its allies, of course. So the one who sustains it, the one who created it, is the Muslim enemy. That's no doubt. We have to understand that. And I'm not appeasing or appealing to no one in my terminology. I will call the kafir kafir, I will call the Muslim Muslim. I will call the right right, and I will call the wrong wrong. So our kafir enemy is the one who created the Zionist entity. And the one who sustains it today is our kafir enemy, whether it is the country we stay in or abroad. So the one who protects the Zionist entity is also someone and the one who we should take as an enemy. Who protects the Zionist entity? Anybody. It is the Arab and the so-called Muslim regimes. It is not the US. The US sustains actually, I'll give you some figures. So Biden said 1986, he said in the Senate that the $3 billion we give to the US a year is the best investment the US makes in history. And it will be the best investment we will ever make. And if there were no Israel, we would have to invent one to protect the interest or to protect our interest in the region. I quote by word. So it is the best investment the US makes. And if there were no Israel, so-called Israel, he would invent one to protect the interest in the region. He said the same thing by word, exact wording. He said the same thing 2011, 2016. He did say the same thing yesterday, if you watched his press conference. He said if there were no Israel, we would have to invent one. So that's the one who sustains it. They give him money, they give him support, technology, all of that, political coverage, conspiracy, lies, all of that. So that's sustaining. But the one who protects is actually the Arab regimes and the so-called Muslim rulers. If you look at the map, the state or the entity of the Zionist lies in the heart of the Muslim lands. There are an ocean of Muslims surrounding it. There are hundreds of millions of Muslims. If they were to line up on the borders of Palestine and spit on the Jewish state, they will drown it. There's more than 300 million Arabs surrounding immediately. Imagine the borders of Jordan, or the borders between Jordan and Palestine, or the borders between Lebanon and Palestine, or the borders between Syria and Palestine, or the borders between Egypt and Palestine were to open for a second, you would see floods of Muslims rushing and running to die fi sabilillah as shaheed. They will consider better than performing Hajj in Mecca. So the one who protects the Jewish entity, I would say the Zionist entity, is definitely the Arab regimes and the so-called Muslim regimes. They are the Iron Dome. They brag about their Iron Dome. The one that, by the way, its success rate is less than 30% by at best. So the Arab regimes are their Iron Dome. The Arab regimes are the tyrant rulers that shackle the Muslims from moving. The Arab regimes and the tyrant rulers are the ones who always strike deals with the ones who are sincere. If you remember Gaza, the year 2000, as far as, I'm very well conscious, and I remember over 17, 18, 20 years, like your age and older, from the year 2000, 1996, 2000, 2008, 2011, 2014, 2021, 20. So the ones who strike the deals to protect the interest of the Yahud and to protect physically, financially, and politically the Zionist entity are the Arab regimes. So the one who protects it are the Arab and the so-called Muslim regimes. There's no doubt about that. I will try to cut my talk, short, inshallah, for the purpose of time, because we have to allow for some questions. I have a lot to say about these Arab rulers. Actually, their cowardice and shameful acts, and their inaction and indignity speaks for itself. Wording here is not going to degrade them more than what they are. So at least we know they don't look after our affairs. They do not take care of our interests as Muslims. They do not implement the rules of Islam. They are not united. They are shackling the Muslims and preventing them from anything, even in their own countries, without helping Palestine or the Muslims in Palestine. They are the poorest people on the face of the earth. We have the vast and the richest resources in the world, yet we suffer from the highest rates and percentages of poverty and disparity and all of that. So we'll leave that alone. So if we understand the real cause of the problem, which is the one who protected the Zionist entity, the one who sustains it, and the one who protects it, now then we can deduce and understand the solution. So this solution should address the real cause problem. We call it real cause problem requires a real cause solution, right? Or root cause problem requires a root cause solution. So the root cause solution to that is, number one, we stop, or we remove, or we uproot the one who protects it. Because number one, protection. So if you uproot the one who protects it, unify the Muslim armies and the Muslim countries, and implement the rules of Islam, then you have done two things. Number one, you have lifted the protection from the Zionist entity. You have removed the sustenance from the Zionist entity. You have allowed the Muslims, and I'm not even calling about the armies, we'll talk about that in a second. I'm talking about the average Muslims, the ones who are willing to go down and participate in something they wish to die for that cause. If that is removed, and then we know this is going to be a solution. But more importantly, they may create another one. They may bring about another entity that will deal as they have in Kashmir, in Chechnya, and what they're doing in China and Russia and all of that. So this is a solution. This is a magical formula that will solve all the problems that the Muslims have. So a root cause problem is going to require a root cause solution for all the problems that Muslims have. So I'm going to ask you a question, and please think about it for a second. So imagine, God forbids, inshallah, la samhallah, God forbids, if your loved one, and maybe the most loved to our hearts are probably our mothers and our daughters, more than our sons and fathers or brothers. So imagine your mother or your daughter. God forbids is shot, and this bullet comes in the heart. And as she is shot in the heart, she falls on the ground. And as she fell on the ground, on the sidewalk, on the concrete, she had a broken finger and a scratched arm. What do? Do you sit tight and start praying and making dua and giving charity to whoever needs it? No, you don't. Either you have a car, you take it to the hospital, emergency room immediately, without paying attention to the rules of traffic and anyone who's there, or you call 911, right? Isn't that what you do? So you don't sit down and start making dua, or praying, or fasting, or giving charity. That's inaction. Logical, common sense, even the animals do that. So immediately engage in action that will save your loved one. So we're going to advance in this scenario a little bit. So you took her to the hospital, emergency room. There's a very smart doctor who's pushing everybody away, say, I got this. And what he does is, he's putting a bandage, and he's trying to take care of the little bleeding or the broken finger on the arm. What is this doctor do? And pushing everybody away. So he's not addressing the shot in the heart, he's only addressing the symptoms of that shot, when that person fell. The broken arm, finger, or bleeding on the arm. What is he actually doing? Is he saving the life of your loved one? Or he's causing the real death to him or to her? He's actually killing her. He's not saving her. So what do? You kick him away, and again, logic, common sense. It has nothing to do with Islamic evidences and anything from Quran and Sunnah. You're going to address the vital issue. The vital issue is the shot in the heart. That will either save the person or will cause the person to die. So two things. Number one, inaction is going to cause your loved one to die. Number two, wrong action is also going to cause your loved one to die. So we have a vital issue. We as a Muslim Ummah, we are struck in the heart. We are shocked in the heart. So praying, fasting, making dua, and giving charity and reciting Al-Fatiha 1,000,000 times a day is not going to save our brothers and sisters. That's not a solution. And also, wrong action of calling your Senate and calling upon those institutions that may, begging them, like we're doing today. Unfortunately, a lot of the Muslims, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, inshallah, will continue, so to put it in context. So the wrong action without the proper action is also going to cause the Muslim Ummah to die. So to help our brothers and sisters absolutely and sincerely and practically, we actually have to address the vital issue. The real cause of that is because we are disunited and Islam is not implemented. And there is no political will and desire to move our armies. These are our armies. They are not the armies of the king of Jordan and the president of Egypt and Bashar Assad, a tyrant, and all these Arab and Muslim rulers. These are our own armies. These are the Muslim armies. These are our brothers and sisters, the ones who have an aqidah that is alive in their heart. We call upon them, and we call upon those hands who have had wudu to push the trigger. So again, we're disunited. We're not implementing Islam. We don't have political will and desire. We are not under the ruling of Islam. We don't have a ruler who's Muslim, who's one that pledged to serve and take care of the interests of the Muslims. So this is the shield, as the Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith. إِنَّمَا الْإِمَامُ جُنَّةٌ. Indeed, the Imam, the Muslim ruler, the one Muslim ruler, the Khalifa, the one who we give bay'ah, the one who brings the unity of the Muslims in practical context, the one that we choose, and he's among us and we're among him or them, is a shield. So we don't have a shield today. So to be practical, brothers and sisters, and I know I'm running out of time, we have no choice. There is no choice. And there is no excuse. Because you don't have time. I don't have time. Death is upon us. If it is not today, it's tomorrow. And anything that is happening, is coming, is imminent. So it might be today, it might be tomorrow. It might be after 10 years or 100 years. You may have a chance, we may not have a chance to repent and do what's right. So your ummah is suffering and your ummah is crying. Your obligation is very well easy and understood. I understand calling for the Senate or protesting outside and posting videos and making our voices heard is probably the best we could do here, but that's not the only thing. So the Sharia evidences indicate that if you have such a huge obligation and a big obligation, an important obligation, and something that requires a huge and collective effort, it must be done as a collective group work. Again, imagine if we have to build this room. Can one person build it? Can we have this or unorganized efforts to build this room, or have actually an activity like this? So it requires an organized collective effort. So this organized collective effort is done only through political intellectual organizations. You cannot do this individually. Matter of fact, it is not accepted, as we said. So no action or wrong action is going to cause your loved one to die. So the way to save the Ummah is, number one, you go look for that sincere and serious political and intellectual organization that had specified its goal and objective as uniting the Muslims, reclaiming our armies, reclaiming our unity, reclaiming our strength, reclaiming our tanks and jets and fighters, reclaiming our guns. And we push the trigger when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says do so. So you go find that group that is politically, intellectually mature. This work today is political, intellectual from individuals like us. So I'm not calling no one to pick any arms or do anything. If you were in Palestine, it's a different story. So your role right now, your obligation right now is to go find the group or the groups that are political, intellectual by nature, that have adopted a methodology from the Seerah, a methodology that is evident by the evidences of the Sharia, that has specified the goal and objective extracted from Quran and Sunnah, that had picked its path without deviation. It does not compromise. It does not sell the sacred blood of the Muslims and the sacred sacrifices that the Muslims have given for any vanished gain in this life. And once you find it and you understand its goal and its objective, and this goal and objective is practical and it reaches the goal, you got to join it. You can't say I can't, or next year or tomorrow, or I don't have time. You may not have time to do anything. These people didn't have time, but the only thing they're honored is with Shahada. So my message to you today, and inshallah I have a final message to somebody else, is to go find that group and work with it. And only this way you can fulfill your obligation and answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He asks you about those people who we've seen. So the last thing I want to say today is a message to the crowns on our heads, to the people who have revived in us the values of dignity and honor, to those who paid the ultimate price, to those we are proud of, to the Muslims in Gaza, and anybody who does as such. Beware of the traps. Beware of the snakes around you. Beware of the Arab and the so-called Muslim rulers. They are conspiring against you. Beware of the secret services that come from Egypt and Lebanon and Syria and Iran and Hezbollah and all of them. They are none but Western agents. They have not done anything yet, so far as we know them for the past 70, 80, 100 years. They have done nothing of honor. They have done nothing that brings us any dignity or value. So beware of them. Beware of the plans and the plots and the deals that are struck by America, or struck by Europe, or struck by the Arab regimes. May Allah give you success in this life and in the next life. Jazakum Allah khair. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Inshallah, I'll take all of you.